Hello and welcome back to Try Your Hand. I'm Brenda and today we are going to be making a disc mosaic. So why don't we get started with the supplies. So for your supplies you will need a plate, some DVD discs or CDs, tacky glue, non-sanded grout, Mod Podge, and a sponge brush. These all should be in your kit when you pick that up. There are some things that you will have to provide for yourself, such as water to mix with the grout, something to spread the grout with. I used a broken knife, plastic knife, to spread that, but really you could use like any sort of palette knife or old spatula, something like that. You will also need a disposable cup or plate, and you may need a hair dryer, and also something with a pointed tip. The first step in this project is to split our DVDs in half. This is where the blow dryer would come in handy. The hot air on the CDs helps the different layers of the DVD to split apart. I did not have that, so I had to force it with the X-Acto knife, which is not smart because you could cut yourself. Luckily I did not, but don't do that. Once you have it kind of loosened up, then you can stick something, that pointed thing, into the layers of the CD and then pull them apart. When you are done pulling some apart, what you want is to have the holographic foil on the clear side of the CD, not the side of the label. So once you have that all set up, then you can take your sponge, dip it in your Mod Podge, and cover the shinier side in the Mod Podge. That's to protect the foil from coming off of the CD. The next step of the project is to figure out what your design is going to be. So you can do this two different ways. You can make a drawing and then trace those shapes onto the DVDs, and then cut them out, or you could just cut random shapes out of the DVDs and then place them around until you like the arrangement and then glue them. I decided that cutting random shapes was much easier for me. So here you see me tracing and cutting out some pieces of the drawing that I did. Quickly, I realized that that was really hard and I didn't want to do that anymore, especially because the little drawings that I did made the pieces really tiny. So if you do want to draw out your project, I would suggest keeping in mind that you want to cut out big pieces out of the DVDs, so make sure that your design isn't very complicated. Otherwise, you will be sitting there for a very long time cutting out really tiny little pieces of CDs. So, with that in mind, we are now going to glue our items onto our plate. So, how I did that was to take my tacky glue, and then just put a little dab of glue on my plate, spread that around with my fingers, and then place all the little pieces that I cut down on those that glued spot. One thing to keep in mind is that you want to put the side with the Mod Podge face down. The reason for this is because the grout that we're using, if you do put it the other way around so that the Mod Podge side is facing up, a lot of the times it happens to rub off the shininess of the CD, which is really unfortunate because that side happens to also be the most shiny of the sides. So there is a way for you to save that. I was reading online, and in order to really protect that super shiny side of the DVD, you'll have to like go out and get a clear, glossy like spray paint and cover it with that spray paint to really protect that side of the CD. So the reason that we put Mod Podge on the side that we're actually gluing down is because if you're moving the little piece around on your plate to see where you want it, I've noticed that even doing that will scratch up the backside of your project, and you don't really want that. So that does protect it from like the roughness of the plate. So now we're going to mix our grout. So I put the grout in this paper plate. I didn't put all of it in just in case I put too much water and I could put in some more grout. But I made like a little well in my bowl with my grout and then poured some water in there. If you want some more precise measurements, you can look at the directions here that I have. But I mixed it, and you want it to be kind of thickish, essentially. As you can see, I'm mixing it here, and this is about the consistency that you want. If you don't, you can add a little bit more water if you need. It's really not all that much water. So after your initial mix, you do want to wait for 10 minutes, and then you want to mix again without adding any more water. So once you have done that, you can then start putting your grout onto your project. Alright, so now that you have everything all set up, you can start putting the grout onto your project. As you can see, I am doing a slightly different project because I messed up the other one. I'll show you what I did wrong later. But what I did here is to take my spoon and just glob on some grout and then start spreading it around with the edge of my spoon, just to kind of get the grout in all the nooks and crannies of my project here. So once I've put in a lot of my grout, I then took a broken knife and used like the back side of the knife and used that as like my scraper. And so I then started scraping at an angle. So had my knife at an angle and started scooping off the excess grout. I left some pretty big spaces, my DVD tiles, and so you could start to see little divots of where like it was missing some grouts. And what I would do is I would put some more grout on and then like smooth it out again until everything was pretty much level. So now that the grout is on my project, I can start to clean off all of the excess grout on my project. I did this with a damp sponge. So you don't want the sponge to be soaking at all. You just want it to be a little bit wet. So I would just dip my sponge in water, wring it out, and then with the sponge edge, I would just kind of very lightly go over any spot that has some excess grout. So for example, I would go over the edges and I would go over the little discs tiles and make sure that like the grout was mostly off of it. I would also take like a bit of a paper towel or something, kind of just to take off a little bit of that haze. Once I was done with that, I then left it for a couple of hours. So once we've waited our couple of hours, we're going to take a paper towel with just a smidgen of water and we're going to clean off the rest of the haze that's left over off of our tiles. You want to get most of it off the first time around because it does harden and gets harder to take off, but this is just the part where you kind of finish off polishing them. They are going to look a little bit scratched and hazy because of the grout, just scratching the disc itself, but that's okay. Once we put Mod Podge, our last step, onto our project, it'll start to look really shiny again. So that's not a problem at all. So this is the finished project with the Mod Podge put onto our project. You saw me previously just dabbing it on the disc itself. You don't have to do that. The reason I was doing that before was because the grout itself hadn't set yet, so I didn't want to get the Mod Podge on the grout. But with this, the grout had already set. It had sit for a couple of days, so this is what your project will look like. As teased earlier, this particular one that you're seeing here, this project, is my third attempt at doing this. And this finally did turn out really, really good. I'm going to show you my previous attempts at this project. For example, this is attempt number 1. It does look pretty nice. You can tell that it is a little shinier than my previous one. The thing is that I noticed that with this project, because I put the shinier side facing up, when I put the grout on, you can tell that it started taking off the foil, and you can tell that the foil was taken off of those white tiles on this project. I thought that the Mod Podge would protect it, but it did not protect it. It protected some, but not others, which was too much of a risk for me. And you can tell, you know, it looks so nice, so shiny. Like the rainbows are so much more prominent on this one, which is why if you do want a shinier finish, you need to put some sort of clear finish on top of it in order to make it look really nice and to keep it from flaking off the foil. Then you see my second attempt at this project, which turned out awful. The reason for that is because I didn't let the Mod Podge completely dry on this one, and then I accidentally left the grout to dry, and then it took off a lot of the like metallic foil, and it turned out terrible. So, which is why the project that I showed you is on the back of the plate. So hopefully you learn from my mistakes and you do better on your project. So I hope you guys had fun with this project. I know I certainly learned quite a few new things with this one. For our next Try Your Hand, we will be making some baskets. If you're interested, you can go onto our website and sign up for that one, and we will give you a kit of supplies. All right, I'll see you guys next time.